The NFL landscape shifted in a major way this week, and if you blinked, you might have missed one of the most important momentum swings of the entire season because the NFC East just got turned upside down as the Eagles slipped at the worst possible time. The Dallas Cowboys absolutely crushed the New York Giants in dominant fashion, and Major League-wide buzz continues to swirl around Tee Higgins and what his situation means for contenders like Dallas. And when you zoom out and look at everything together, this wasn't just another week of football. This was a statement week that could define how the rest of the season plays out, especially in a division where power changes fast and confidence matters just as much as talent. Because let's start with the Eagles, a team that entered the season with Super Bowl expectations, loaded with talent, praised for their roster depth, and widely viewed as the class of the NFC. Yet suddenly they find themselves dealing with questions that weren't supposed to come up this late in the year, questions about consistency, execution, and whether they can close games when it matters most, because slipping in divisional matchups doesn't just hurt the standings. It shakes belief, and belief is everything in the NFL, especially when teams are gearing up for playoff football. And what made this Eagles slip so damaging is not just that they lost, but how they lost. Failing to sustain momentum, letting opponents back into games, and showing vulnerability in moments where championship teams usually lock things down. And when rivals like Dallas are watching closely, every crack in the armor becomes opportunity. And the Cowboys didn't hesitate to take full advantage of that opening, because while the Eagles were slipping, Dallas was doing the exact opposite, sending a loud, unmistakable message across the division by crushing the New York Giants with authority, confidence, and a level of dominance that reminded everyone why the Cowboys remain one of the most dangerous teams when they're locked in and firing on all cylinders. And this wasn't just a close win or a sloppy, grinded out game. This was Dallas imposing their will from start to finish, controlling the tempo, dictating the pace, and making it clear that the gap between these two teams is very real right now, because the Cowboys came out aggressive, focused, and disciplined, executing on both sides of the ball, moving the chains consistently on offense while suffocating the Giants defensively, forcing mistakes, creating pressure, and never letting New York settle into any rhythm whatsoever. And when a team wins like that, it does more than boost the win column. It boosts confidence, chemistry, and belief in the locker room. And that belief is exactly what separates good teams from great ones when December football arrives. And what stands out about this Cowboys performance is how balanced it was, because this wasn't just one player going off or one unit carrying the load. This was a complete team effort where the offense moved with purpose, the defense played fast and physical, and the coaching staff put players in positions to succeed, which is something Cowboys fans have been begging to see consistently for years. And when you combine that type of win with the fact that the Eagles are stumbling, suddenly the NFC East doesn't look as locked up as many people assumed it would be earlier in the season, because momentum in this league is real, and Dallas has it right now, while Philadelphia is searching for answers. And that brings us to the bigger picture, because divisional swings like this don't just affect standings. They affect seeding, matchups, and playoff paths. And if the Cowboys can continue stacking wins while their rivals falter, the road to January football could look very different than expected, especially when you consider how dangerous Dallas can be when they're playing at home, feeding off the crowd, and riding confidence rather than pressure. And while all of this divisional drama is unfolding, another storyline continues to hover over the league like a cloud, and that's the ongoing conversation around Tee Higgins. Because anytime an elite wide receiver with size, speed, and proven production is part of the news cycle, fans and analysts immediately start connecting dots, speculating about fits, and wondering how a player like that could change the ceiling of a contender. And even though Higgins is currently tied to his situation, the fact that his name keeps coming up speaks volumes about his value and the kind of impact he brings to an offense, because Tee Higgins isn't just another receiver. He's a matchup problem, a red zone threat, And a player defenses have to game plan for every single week. And when you look at teams like the Cowboys, who already have offensive weapons but are always searching for that extra edge that separates playoff teams from Super Bowl teams, it's impossible not to imagine how a player of Higgins' caliber could elevate an already potent attack, stretch the field, open space underneath, and give quarterbacks another elite option when plays break down. And while Dallas didn't land Higgins, the conversation itself highlights where the Cowboys are as a franchise right now, a team that is expected to compete, expected to be aggressive, and expected to be part of every major discussion when star talent is involved, and that expectation is earned, especially when performances like the Giants blowout reinforce the idea that Dallas has the talent and capability to go toe to toe with anyone in the league. And what makes this moment particularly interesting is how everything seems to be converging at once, because the Eagles slipping creates opportunity, the Cowboys dominating creates momentum, and the league-wide receiver market chatter reminds everyone that championships are often won by teams willing to maximize their windows. And for Dallas, that window feels very real right now because their core players are producing, their depth is stepping up, and their confidence is growing. And when confidence meets opportunity, that's when teams make noise, and you can already feel the energy shifting among fans, analysts, and even opposing teams, because Dallas is no longer being talked about as just a flashy regular season team. They're being discussed as a serious threat that's peaking at the right time. And that's exactly what you want as the season progresses, because no one wants to face a team that's gaining momentum while believing in itself, especially in the playoffs where every mistake is magnified and every big play can change the course of a season. And when you contrast that with the Eagles, who are now dealing with pressure, scrutiny, and the weight of expectations, you start to see how fragile dominance can be in the NFL, because one slip can lead to doubt, and doubt can lead to hesitation, and hesitation is deadly at this level. And that's why this week matters so much more than the final scoreline suggests, because it's about trajectory, that it's about who's rising and who's wobbling. And right now, the arrow is pointing up for Dallas, and that doesn't mean the season is over or that the Eagles are finished, but it does mean the margin for error is shrinking. And every upcoming game carries more weight, more pressure, and more consequences. And for Cowboys fans, this is the type of stretch that fuels belief, because they've seen what this team looks like when everything clicks, and they know how dangerous it can be if that level of play becomes the norm instead of the exception. And as the league continues to watch how the Tee Higgins situation and other roster storylines evolve, one thing is clear: the Cowboys are positioning themselves as a team that doesn't just want to make the playoffs, but wants to make a statement once they get there. And the combination of divisional rivals slipping, dominant wins against struggling opponents, and constant discussions about adding elite talent only reinforces the idea that Dallas is in the middle of a pivotal moment, one that could define not just this season, but the perception of the franchise moving forward, because narratives change quickly in the NFL, and a few weeks of strong football can erase years of doubt. And if the Cowboys continue playing with this level of focus, physicality, and confidence, they won't just be chasing the Eagles, they'll be setting the pace for the entire NFC. And that's why this division swing matters. That's why this Giants blowout matters. And that's why every piece of news surrounding elite players like Tee Higgins matters, because all of it feeds into the same story, a story about power shifting, momentum building, and a team realizing that its opportunity is right in front of it, and the rest of the league better be paying attention.